Welcome in, everybody. It's Doc, and we have a Monday Night Football game that, if you circled this game at the beginning of the season, you would have been excited for it. However, now no Dak Prescott. The Cowboys have looked like bad all season. It's the Cowboys and the Texans. Most people aren't excited for it. I actually am, and we'll get into why in just a second. Welcome back in, everybody. Me and JJ talked through everything, even though he's not with me on this recording. And we broke everything down. I'm about to tell you everything that we talked about, and we made a parlay that you'll see at the end. Before I get into that, let's talk about the op of the week, Evan McPherson. We need the Cincinnati Bengals to win this game for the parlay last night. T. Higgins was air. Will Dissey was air. The Bengals come back down 21 and tie it up 27-27. Evan McPherson misses not one, but 2 field goals. And now it's time for me to make it up to you. We got to cash you out today. And we're going to start off talking about the Houston Texans. Nico Collins returns, which is a huge addition for this team that is favored by 7.5 points in this game. I think most people are expecting them to win comfortably. I know a lot of people think that 7.5 is way too low. I disagree. And I'll get into why in a second. But where the advantage of the offenses lie is Joe Mixon. The Dallas run defense is horrible, and I mean really, really bad. And you'd think Nico Collins probably opens things up a little bit more for not only the offense, but Joe Mixon, because now the safeties have to respect that deep ball a little bit more. But Dallas is actually pretty good against the deep ball when you look at DUI. They struggle more against short passes. And while Nico Collins is more than just a deep ball guy, when I say that, you think more Christian Watson, he still has a lot of his value in what he does is those huge chunk plays, 20, 25-yard catches that he makes look so easy. And he does more than that. But if you're eliminating some of those deep balls, now things get a little bit more tough in the trenches. And I think that's where Joe Mixon is going to become really valuable. And I just think that the strength for this Houston offense is going to rely a lot more in the run game than the pass game. Combine that with the fact that they're likely going to be winning, it seems like a Joe Mixon game. He's at 100 or more yards in every game with at least 13 rush attempts except one. That was last week against the Detroit Lions, arguably the best run defense in the NFL. He had 25 attempts for 46 yards. You know he's coming back this week. So Joe Mixon is probably my favorite play on that side. As far as Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, Nico Collins, I mean, Nico Collins is probably matchup proof, if we're being completely honest. But depending on how much attention the Cowboys give him, you could play Tank Dell. But like I said, the Cowboys are surprisingly solid against the deep ball, which doesn't favor Tank Dell too much either. And I'm not really trying to bet on a game on Dalton Schultz in a game where Nico Collins and Tank Dell are both active. So I'm kind of staying away from the Texans receiving game. If I had to pick one, it would be Nico. And the main detail that I have in favor of that Nico read is he leads the NFL in targets per game when the quarterback runs out of the pocket, which Stroud does excessively, and the Cowboys are horrible at defending in terms of yards per attempt. So I'm not seeing much passing production outside of passes to Nico, if I'm being completely honest. Now let's go to the Dallas side, and this is where I think things get really interesting because although Dak Prescott is not active, neither is Will Anderson or their defensive tackle for the Houston Texans. On top of that, Mike McCarthy said in the press conference after the game, or leading up to this game, he wants to get Rico Dowdle more involved. He wants to give him more touches. He wants the offense to focus more around him. So combine that with the injuries on the Houston side and wanting to take pressure off of Cooper Rush, the quarterback stepping in for Dak Prescott, it feels written in the stars that Rico Dowdle is going to have a big game. And you still have CeeDee Lamb in the mix, who's going to get his. He always does. It's just a matter of, are his 10 targets going to be downfield or 2-yard crossers? And that's going to depend on Mike McCarthy. I don't really have the answer for it. And on top of that, with those injuries on the defensive line for the Texans and the fact that there isn't any in the secondary, a secondary that I think is unbelievably talented, if I'm the Dallas coach, I'm saying, hey, we're going to run it as many times as possible for as long as we're not down by 20. Once we're down by 20, 14, yeah, obviously you have to sling it downfield a little bit. But if it's a neutral script game, I'm handing it off to Rico Dowdle and getting him as involved as possible. He's no Saquon Barkley. But if we're playing the matchup and we're recognizing the fact that we don't have Dak Prescott under center, you have to go to Rico. And with that, if he's getting 12, 13, 14, 15 touches, Now those big plays to CD open up even if you don't have a good quarterback. If you give the ball to Rico 15 times, on the 16th it's actually a play action, and now CD Lamb is wide open. I can go complete a 20-yard pass to CD Lamb. CD Lamb's open all the time. So yeah, give me Rico Dowdle in terms of usage, and I think that's going to help CD Lamb's efficiency a little bit. Don't really want to touch Jalen Tolbert. Don't want to touch Cooper Rush props. Both kickers have been really consistent this season in terms of getting field goal attempts. Don't really want to play either in this game, mostly because Kai Fairbairn is going to get a Dallas defense that doesn't seem to stop teams when the field gets short. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans are able to be pretty efficient once the field gets shorter. And on the other side, I'm not really banking on Cooper Rush driving down the field. It depends how much you want to rely on Rico Dowdle. I think you can, but if you're talking field goal props, I want to know, hey, we're getting a good defense, and this offense is going to be able to drive a little bit before it gets stopped. And Dallas doesn't have a good defense, and Dallas doesn't have an offense that I believe can make multiple good drives. So I'm staying away from the kickers. With all that being said, let's get into the parlay. And before I do that, there's not going to be a game pick on it. And that's because I really wanted to play Dallas plus 7.5. There's a lot of systems that support it, and I think people are overlooking those defensive injuries for the Texans a lot. But man, the Texans offense is still just really fucking good. So I don't want to play it, but I'm very tempted to. But as far as the parlay goes, the first leg we're going with is Joe Mixon over 100 receiving yards. Like I said, in every game with at least 13 rush attempts, he's hit this line except for one, and that was last game against a bad running defense. I'm betting against that happening again. Give me Joe Mixon over 100 receiving yards. And the other one, we're getting a little cute. Rico Dowdle, 20-plus rushing plus receiving yards in the first quarter. And the reason I did the first quarter is because of the fact that as much as I wanted to play that Dallas Cowboys plus 7.5, the Texans are probably still going to win this game. And if they're in a passing game script, it could be a lot of trouble. I think he had last week, Rico Dowdle, I think he had 9 rush attempts in the first half and then 2 in the second half or something. Obviously, they lost like crazy. And while I don't think that happens again, I don't really want to play that game. I think he's going to get used heavily. I think it's going to happen early because that's when the game will be most neutral. And with the injuries on the Houston Texans defensive line and the fact that other running backs have done pretty well against them in the first quarter, the ones that have gotten at least 4 carries, which I think Rico should get today, they've put up pretty good yardage and efficiency. So I'm taking Rico Dowdle in the first quarter. Don't have to worry about blowout, and I think the usage is going to be more than there. So Joe Mixon, 100-plus receiving yards. Rico Dowdle, 20-plus rushing plus receiving yards in the first quarter. Locked it on FanDuel. I think it's plus 307 if I'm remembering it correctly. Otherwise, like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next episode. I'll have JJ with me. This one was on me and my scheduling issues today, so I'll take the blame. Otherwise, you'll see JJ on the next one. Good luck, everybody, and I'll see you later.